Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Head, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion. Your host, the Hud, and welcome back to the Baseball Head 2. And hopefully you like this video and hit that subscribe button. So we had the Major League Baseball trading deadline on Thursday, and there were a lot of winners that that made out really well in the trade at the trade deadline. But there were really two major losers, I think. In this situation, and I think one of the teams was the Orioles, and this is what the video is going to be here. And then, of course, there's the Minnesota Twins, which will have a separate video because the Twins, obviously, they trade like a third of their team, almost half of their team. 11 players got moved off the Major League roster, which is unheard of in Major League Baseball these days. But the Orioles, and these are two teams that are expected to be postseason teams, expected to go very far. I predicted the Orioles would be in the World Series last year. They didn't do it. They went to postseason, and they won the division, but it's a bit of a struggle. This has been a very perplexing situation down there in Baltimore because they were a team that was expected to do a lot of things, but they fired the manager early. They brought in an interim guy. He's done okay, but the team sold and had a fire sale. The general manager's done a terrible job because he didn't bring in the right kind of talent. He didn't bring in leadership into that clubhouse. He didn't put his team in a position to compete. There was no pitching depth. He couldn't. And then when the media asked him about it, he couldn't quite understand why all these injuries to all these pitchers. It's been a very strange situation. And they have new ownership. And ownership told him and told the fans in Baltimore, we're going to spend money. They didn't spend any money last season. And there were so many very good free agents that they could have really brought in to help them. They could have been in on one, so they weren't for whatever reason. They could have brought in some big pitching. They didn't re-sign Corbin Burns after they traded a whole bunch of prospects to them. Now, the general manager there, he does a good job bringing in prospects and building a farm system. But obviously, he can't build a winner. He can't sustain it. So this is from awful announcement, and it's being criticized now. I guess the whole team is being criticized from management up. This is from awful announcing. And this is coming from ESPN. Scott Van Pelt slams Orioles at the Firesale. Quote, how this was the plan for 2025 is beyond me. Hard to squander the goodwill more swiftly. Just last season, Scott Van Pelt received the honor of throwing out the first pitch for his favorite team, the Baltimore Orioles, in Game 1 of their wild card series against the Kansas City Royals. 9 months later, the direction of the organization could be more different, which was highlighted by the team's moves at the 25 MLB trade deadline on Thursday. Despite coming into the 25 season with high expectations, the Orioles floundered to the tune of 50 and 59 this season thus far, sitting at the very bottom of the AL East standings. At the deadline, the Orioles unloaded just about everyone who wasn't under team control, for the Orioles are part of the team's long-term plans. And while Van Pelt understood the decision to do this, he did question whether his favorite team could have done anything differently to prevent this outcome. Well, first of all, one of the things they could have done is built a better team around this young talent, around this young lineup. They didn't do that. 2 years after winning the division, Baltimore punched the deadline, wrote Van Pelt in a post on X. Had to be done, he wrote. Sure, I get it. Injuries were insanely early and was too far gone. But how this was the plan for 2025 is beyond me. What was the plan exactly? Hard to squander the goodwill more swiftly. Van Pelt suffered through some dark days for the Orioles after the organization parted ways of Manny Machado in 2018. The team lost 115 games in 2018, 108 games in 2019, and 110 in 2021. So it's safe to say that no matter how bad things get for the Orioles moving forward, he will remain a devoted fan for life. Now, a little more context. 9 of the last 20 years, the Orioles have lost over 90 games. So they've been really bad for a very long time. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Angelos family didn't know what they were doing. They were just punting on everything. They didn't care. The only time they had any kind of real good years is when Buck Showalter was the manager there. And they had a very good team, very good core. And then they basically ripped the whole team apart, and he had to leave because they were so bad. He got fired, and it wasn't Buck's fault. But they've been bad for a long time. People don't realize that. People mention those bad years of 2018, 19, 2021. They were worse than that. They've been worse than that for a long time. The last 20 years has been very difficult for Baltimore Orioles fans. But in Van Pelt's defense, it is indeed incredibly baffling to think about how the Orioles have gotten to this point after reaching the postseason each of the last 2 years. Sometimes it is harder to watch a talented team fall apart than watch a miserable team that had no expectations to be miserable. That's what drives me crazy as a Met fan. So when the Mets are good, I know they're good, and they play terrible, that bothers me more than when they're bad, and I know they're bad. So as a fan, I can understand when you have all this potential and all this talent, and they have one of the most talented young teams in baseball's lineup, but they never really developed any pitching. And I understand that Grayson Rodriguez is going to be going in for some very serious surgery. Never even heard of the name of it. It's very serious stuff. Maybe this potentially serves as a reset button for the organization as we approach the home stretch of the 2025 MLB season. But either way, it is quite clear that the Orioles organization is clearly at a bit of a crossroads for years to come. After the 2025 trade deadline, they should fire the general manager. This is all on the general manager, not looking into the future and realizing that he didn't have enough pitching. They should have fired him in the middle of the season, to be honest with you. Now, from what I understand, he had a very good draft. He had a very good draft for the Orioles, but he is a disaster as a general manager, building a winning team, sustaining it. He didn't bring in any pitching, like depth pitching. He didn't draft any big pitchers. Every player that's a big player with the Orioles, for the most part, that's elite, are position players. There's not a lot of pitching there. It's a big reason why they brought in Corbin Burns a couple of years ago. It's because they didn't have that depth in the organization. Now, they turned out to be smart not to resign him, but because he got injured, blew out his elbow. But this is a team that's been poorly run the last 2 years. It really has been poorly run for a long time. But when you get to a point where you're building all this talent, you have to do more. You have to give them veteran leadership in that clubhouse. You need depth in the pitching staff. They have a good bullpen. The bullpen's pretty good. The starting staff, there's nothing there. There's nothing there on their bench. And they just traded away everybody pretty much that was not nailed to the floor for next year. So, and there's all kinds of rumors that Adley Rutschman is probably going to get traded next. That he will get traded in the offseason. That's what I was hearing on Thursday, which I was surprised about because they do have a lot of catching talent in the minor league system, like 2 or 3 real good catchers that have a real good shot to be real good major league players. And Adley is 27 years old, 28 years old now. He's getting up there, so that he's not getting up there in age, but he's going to get moved. I don't think there's any doubt that they will move him next. But you can't let this general manager do any more moves. They need to hire a new general manager that has experience on building winning teams. As simple as that. Well, let me know what you think about this video. Of course, please subscribe to Baseball Head 2. I'll see you later.